Scientists at MIT just confirmed what one ancient civilization figured out over 1,400 years ago. They called it the ultimate reset. We call it fasting. But what's actually happening inside your brain when you skip a meal is something most doctors still won't tell you, because the truth is, your body was designed for this, and the evidence has been hiding in plain sight for over a millennium. In the next 12 minutes, we're going to walk through the Nobel Prize-winning science of fasting, what it does to your brain, your cells, and your focus. And then, we're going to show you something that will genuinely surprise you. A civilization that encoded all of this into daily practice, long before we had a single lab to prove it. Let's start with the biology. And I promise, this is simpler than it sounds. When you eat, especially carbohydrates and sugar, your body breaks that food down into glucose. And glucose is your body's preferred fuel. It's quick, it's easy, it's immediate. But here's the problem. When glucose is always available, your body never cleans itself. Think of it like a factory that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. No maintenance, no shutdown, no repairs. What happens to that factory? It breaks down. In 2016, a Japanese scientist named Yoshinori Ohsumi won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for discovering something called autophagy. Autophagy, from the Greek meaning self-eating, is your body's built-in cleaning and recycling system. When you stop eating and your glucose levels drop, your cells begin doing something remarkable. They start consuming their own damaged parts, old proteins, broken mitochondria, even precancerous cells. Your body literally eats its own waste and rebuilds itself from the inside. And here's the critical detail. Autophagy doesn't begin until somewhere between 12 and 16 hours after your last meal. Which means, if you're eating every 3 to 4 hours like most people in the West, your body's cleaning system never switches on. But it's not just cellular cleanup. The effects on the brain are extraordinary. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University found that fasting increases levels of a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's sometimes described as fertilizer for your brain. Higher BDNF means sharper focus, better memory, greater emotional resilience, and in some studies, a measurable reduction in the symptoms of anxiety and depression. And then there's your dopamine system, the reward system. In our modern world, dopamine is being constantly triggered. Social media, processed food, notifications, constant stimulation. Your dopamine receptors become overwhelmed, and over time, they become numb. Fasting gives your reward system a genuine rest, a reset. After even a short fast, simple things feel more rewarding. Food tastes better, sunlight feels clearer, focus returns naturally. One study from the University of Southern California found that a 72-hour fast regenerated the entire immune system, entirely, from scratch. Now, none of this is fringe science. This is peer-reviewed, Nobel Prize-winning, university-published research. And yet, a complete system incorporating all of these benefits existed long before any of these studies were written. Now here's where this story gets genuinely fascinating. Over 1,400 years ago, long before MIT, long before Nobel Prizes, long before we understood the word autophagy, a complete system of fasting was already in place. Not as a diet trend, not as a wellness hack, as a way of life. In the Islamic tradition, the practice of Ramadan requires fasting from dawn until sunset, every day, for an entire month. Depending on the season and location, That window is typically between 12 and 18 hours. That is almost exactly the optimal fasting window that modern research now recommends for triggering autophagy. 12 to 18 hours. Documented in the Quran, practiced by over 1 billion people, and now confirmed by the Nobel Committee. And it goes deeper than just the fasting window itself. In Islamic practice, the pre-dawn meal, called sahri, is recommended to be eaten as late as possible before the fast begins, just before the Fajr prayer, just before sunrise. Modern nutritional science now tells us that the metabolic benefits of fasting are maximized when the last meal is eaten in the early morning hours and the fast extends through the day. The timing described in the Sunnah is a near-perfect match. And beyond Ramadan, the Sunnah tradition includes voluntary fasting every Monday and Thursday throughout the year, 2 days per week of structured fasting. Consistent, moderate, sustainable. This maps almost identically onto the 5-2 fasting protocol that researchers at the University of Manchester found to produce measurable improvements in metabolic health, insulin sensitivity, and cognitive function within just 3 weeks. A protocol that became a best-selling diet book in 2012. A practice that was already 14 centuries old. Now, I want to be clear about something. This video isn't asking you to convert to anything. It's not telling you what to believe. What it is saying is that somewhere in history, there existed a civilization with a level of insight into human biology that we are still only just beginning to understand. And that, regardless of your faith, is worth paying attention to. So what does all of this mean for you? Whether you're Muslim or not, whether you fast for spiritual reasons or purely for the science. The research is clear. A structured fasting window of between 14 and 18 hours, done consistently, produces measurable cognitive and physical benefits within 3 weeks. And the good news is, it's simpler than you think. Step 1. Start with what researchers call the 16-8 protocol. That simply means 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of eating. If you finish your last meal at 9 in the evening, your next meal would be at 1 in the afternoon the following day. That's it. No calorie counting, no complicated rules. Most of that fasting window, you're asleep anyway. Step 2. Break your fast with protein and slow-releasing complex carbohydrates. Eggs, whole grains, legumes, dates, which incidentally is exactly how the Islamic tradition recommends breaking the fast. With dates, a food that provides immediate natural sugar without spiking insulin aggressively. Again, not a coincidence. Step 3. Use your fasting hours for deep, focused work. This sounds counterintuitive. We've been told we need food to think, but the research says the opposite. During a fast, with BDNF elevated and dopamine receptors refreshed, your brain enters a state of heightened clarity. Many of history's most productive thinkers, including, according to historical accounts, scholars from the Islamic Golden Age, did their most important intellectual work in the early fasting hours before dawn. That window before breakfast isn't dead time. That window might be your most powerful hours of the day.